it's a bit of an experiment this week because we'll come on to Colin in a second, and I'll invite Colin to say a couple of words. But basically, the idea came up of just exploring and analysing where we all are with social media at the moment, particularly in the arts and cultural sector. We will all use it in different guises in our personal lives as well as probably our professional and working lives. But it's quite a conundrum and it evolves all the time. So it just got me thinking about, I wonder if I could find somebody or maybe a couple of people who could give us a really informed overview as to what is going on as far as social media is concerned right now. And I managed to track down Lucy Burns, who there she is on the top right-hand corner on my screen, who works at Intro, which is a great PR and media organisation that some of you might know in Carlisle, that we've had a few dealings with in the past over various subject matters as well. So Lucy's going to give us a bit of an overview from her perspective of what's going on. And then kindly, Rachel Kearns from Theatre by the Lake is with us as well. She runs a lot of the social media for Theatre by the Lake in Keswick. And I thought it'd be interesting just to have a case study of a cultural organisation in, I'm just looking at one or two people still coming through the door, that uses social media profoundly. And obviously it's an incredibly important tool to promote and market what you're doing. So interesting to see where Theatre by the Lake are as far as that's concerned as well. Of course, they've got a big anniversary. Tomorrow is, I'm just going to mute there. There we go. Tomorrow, isn't it, Rachel, is the 25th anniversary sort of party of Theatre by the Lake. So a key moment to get the marketing and the promotion right as well on social media. So no pressure there. So that is the plan for this morning. So I really would invite you to get involved, ask questions. I don't think any question is too stupid to ask about social media. So either put your hand up or stick something into chat. As ever, again, for people that are joining this call for the first time, we record these calls and we put them out through our social media platforms, usually the Monday or the Tuesday of the next week. And also there are captions available on Zoom for people to use for this conversation as well. So that is the plan. Does that all make sense? Does that all sound interesting? And so we might, who knows how long this conversation is going for? It certainly won't go long for any more than 10:30 for an hour. And we'll just see where we get to. But let me invite Colin, first of all, to come off mute. And just, Colin, you dropped me a line, didn't you, 2 or 3 months ago about this? So what sort of stimulated you to ask the question?
I think it was predominantly because the tool that I've used the most for over 10 years is Twitter. I still refuse to call it X. But that's where I used it the most, and it's where I've built up the connections over the years. I do also have sort of Facebook, Instagram, Threads, LinkedIn, but I don't tend to use them very much. It's more to go on and try and see what's going on, and it becomes difficult to try and keep an eye on everything. But what seems to have been termed as the Great Migration, that a lot of people are leaving or just not using Twitter anymore and going to other places. And I became very conscious that quite a number of the people that I like to engage with and I like to see in Cumbria, particularly in sort of arts, culture, nature, the sort of things that I'm really interested in. Some have said, we're taking a break, we're not closing the account, but we actually won't be posting here. And if you would like to see what we're doing, this is where we're going. And one of the challenges is lots of them are going to different places. They're not all going to one place. Others are basically saying we cannot accept the culture that is within Twitter now, and we're closing our accounts and we're going, end of. So it became a bit of a challenge. And then some of my friends have actually gone on to a new one, which was completely new to me, was Blue Sky, where they said it was a nicer place, but it more replicated what Twitter was. And I thought, well, I'm not going to go through all of this of changing to something else, which ends up being just as bad, or I can't see the connections that I want to see. And I just got stuck as to what do I do with this? And so that was why I sort of brought the idea forward as, was it a conversation that we could have together?
Great. Thank you very much indeed, Colin. There was a world before social media, wasn't there? Can you remember that world? You know, somehow we all promoted and talked and discussed and disagreed and agreed in different ways and shapes and forms. But it's with us and it's here to stay. And that's a really interesting point that you raised, Colin, about, well, actually, if you choose to stay on one and everybody else is on another, then actually, where's the conversation? Where's the discussion going to take place across those different platforms?
Yeah, the other thing that I've found a challenge with is actually getting to grips with how the others work and how you see what you want to see. Can you share things? So it's the whole nuts and bolts. I'm sure there's lots of people that have got much more experience and knowledge than me.
All right, great. Okay. Well, thank you, Colin. So let's cross to Lucy. Lucy Burns at Intro, and Lucy's got a few slides which she's kindly put together, which Amy will share for her. Lucy, over to you to take us sort of on a little journey of your thinking, and perhaps to stimulate some questions as well. Perhaps hang on to your questions until Lucy has finished talking, and then we'll see where we get to, and then we'll hear from Rachel at Theatre by the Lake. But Lucy, the floor is yours, and thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Well, thank you, Tom, and thank you for the introduction. So my name is Lucy. I am social media lead here at Intro, and we just wanted to share kind of a bit of an overview as to where social media is kind of at the moment, some stats, and also just share some of our top tips maybe that will help along the way. Amy, would you just mind flicking a couple of slides on, please? And the next one, Brill, thank you. So it's hard to kind of compare previous data due to the way that users have been reported and things like that across different platforms. But this data has been taken from a Meltwater report on the state of social in 2024. So just kind of which platforms the age group of 16 to 64 is using each month. There might be some surprising numbers in there. Facebook is still coming out really high. WhatsApp also considered within that category of social media, although it's mostly more messaging. And just one interesting one I wanted to highlight was, although it's got less users, LinkedIn does present an opportunity for you to connect with like-minded professionals. And it has moved from being more that kind of professional platform that it used to be to a bit more human in recent years. So people sharing more kind of personal insight or personal interests and things like that. So it's definitely one to consider. Could we have next slide, please? And then just as well, sharing a couple of stats with you all kind of on what people are actually using social media for. So again, it's come from Meltwater report, but generally people are using it still to keep in touch with family and friends. Quite high is filling spare time. We're all guilty of sitting there, maybe scrolling through, looking for things that we're interested in. But also things like finding content, so things that people are particularly interested in, and maybe a particular topic or niche. People use it as kind of a research tool and somewhere where they're going to go and find information and also inspiration for things to do and buy. Next slide, please. So kind of just sharing 3 top tips from us in terms of what to do now and where to go and how you can get the most out of it. So firstly, is thinking about going where your audience is, where you enjoy engaging with others is just as important. Thinking creatively about your content and also making sure that your profile or business profile is set up properly before you start engaging. And if you're already on there, doing a bit of an audit and checking that everything is up to date. And we're going to delve into each of these in a little bit more detail now, if we could go to the next slide. So the first thing, and I think it kind of ties on from what your question initially was, Colin, is where should you spend your time? And there's no simple answer. It depends on the type of content you enjoy, but also if you're a business, your audience, where they're going to be, and kind of finding the people that you're most likely to engage with. On average, people do use about, well, they say 6.4 social media platforms each month. So there is plenty of opportunity to reach and engage people in different places. So you don't necessarily have to stick to one platform. You could spend a little bit of time on Facebook, a little bit of time on Instagram, a little bit of time on LinkedIn, and you will reach and engage with different people because people don't tend to stick to one platform. We do know that brands in particular have been leaving X in droves. So it is worth kind of reviewing the platforms that you use or your business uses and asking, are they serving you and serving your interests in the same way that they did previously? Running a little bit of an audit of, are we engaging the right people? Are the right kind of topics appearing for myself? Is this kind of the right type of content that I like to consume or my audience likes to consume? And seeing if that is still relevant to yourself, and then kind of taking a bit of a steer from there on where you might want to have a presence. If we could go to the next slide. So in terms of kind of the different platforms, I've kind of highlighted 5 key ones just from kind of the usage stats. So we've got Facebook, which aims to be a place for people to connect. Instagram is more of a visual platform. TikTok, video, photo content designed to entertain. X, which is more short form content, and LinkedIn, which is a professional networking platform, but as mentioned, it has become kind of more human, more interactive in recent years. Things like Instagram is great if you're looking for something that's more visual, lots of imagery that you can engage with. TikTok, although it is great for you reaching a younger users, it does also have a lot of kind of video content that's engaging to lots of different demographics, and there's something on there for everyone. Facebook's more of a bit of a steady eddy, as we would say, with a great chance to connect with people through active things like groups. And as mentioned, LinkedIn is an opportunity to connect with like-minded professionals, grow networks, grow connections. So it's thinking about what you might be interested in consuming, and also what your audience is interested in consuming and where they might be as well. And then kind of testing out different platforms and how they might work for you. Next slide, please. The second top tip was around content. So being creative with your content. Most platforms prioritize meaningful and informative content. But what does that actually mean? And that's things that are both interesting to you, but also interesting to your audience and understanding what matters to them. So when sharing content, particularly if you're a business, or whether that's a post on a page or engaging within a group, thinking about the different people that you want to reach, but also the different people that you want to engage with, and the things that they might be interested in or that's relevant to them, what will spark a conversation. And remember that the type of content that targets your audience may vary depending on platform. So some people might enjoy more kind of behind the scenes content or thoughts and opinions on relevant topics, or events, initiative activities, and the way that you present that content might be different. So on Instagram, for example, and you were talking about an event, it might be a lot more visual, whereas on LinkedIn, it might be kind of a little bit more formal details and information sort of content. So it's thinking about altering how you present the information for different platforms, but also in a way that's going to engage different people. Have next slide, please. So some tips for creating effective content, and this applies both whether you're an individual or if you're a business, but it's thinking about, are you using the right tone for the audience or the platform? So is it friendly? Is it informative? Is it informal kind of tone? Using high quality images, graphics and videos. So a key thing kind of around like creating something that's engaging is, if you posted an image, is it nice and sharp or is it grainy? And same with kind of videos, what's the quality of it like as well? Don't just post for the sake of posting. When you do, make sure it is engaging. So things like asking questions, posing interesting thoughts, and also don't forget to consider things like emojis. Don't go overboard, but things like that can kind of change the tone of posts, but also kind of make things stand out. Remember to consider like video content as well. If that's something that you haven't tried, it's something that you could consider. So you can create highly kind of produced video content, or you can think about doing it yourself. So just kind of on your phone, and that could just be little clips of kind of you talking about particular topics, or if you're a business showing particular parts of kind of what you're doing. It doesn't have to be like incredibly produced or anything like that. You could just start off simple and try it out, and also tailoring any content for different platforms. So making sure that it's appropriate kind of tone wise, but style wise as well. A couple of examples of people locally doing things well that kind of across the intro office that we quite enjoy. So on Instagram, there's a local kind of artist collective called Somo. And while they're artists themselves, they provide value by sharing art opportunities for their followers, which is really nice. We've got Yvette Earle on LinkedIn. So she doesn't just stick to sharing like her corporate work, she shares kind of personal content as well. And Rachel will be following kind of with how Theatre by the Lake use social media as well, which is great as well. If we can go to the next slide, please. And then the third tip we just want to share was around kind of perfecting your profile. So kind of when you're engaging on any social media platform, whether you're an individual or whether you're a business, making sure that everything's set up properly is always a good place to start, so that when you are engaging and people are interacting with you, that it's not just kind of like a profile-less person or business. And it just helps with that kind of professional. At the end of the day, it's a reflection of kind of businesses and individuals. So on things like Facebook, I'm just showing an example here of Carlisle newsletter, which is something that we helped curate, but make sure you've covered the basics. So if you're a business, for example, have you got an appropriate cover photo and profile photo that says exactly who you are and represents you in the way that you want to be represented? And have you added a description and contact details so that people can get in touch with you, but they also know what you're all about? It's just making sure that those basics are all set up so that when you do start engaging, kind of everybody knows who you are, what you're about, and you're representing yourself in the most professional way as well. We could go to the next slide. And then just spending a second on LinkedIn in particular in terms of perfecting your profile on there. So think of your basics on LinkedIn as being something that people might find out of you either through lanyard or an email sent before networking. So if people were going to meet you for the very first time, what is that information that they would need to know and want to know? So again, checking that you've covered the basics, you've got a profile photo, you've got a cover photo. It doesn't have to be business, it could be a nice scenery or something engaging relating to yourself. Making sure that your headline is right. So it should get straight to the point. Every word has value, and the first 60 characters of that are the most important, because that's what people see when you like comment and things. So make sure you summarize yourself in the most kind of effective way there. Create an about me section that's for your target audience. So tell them what you can do and how it can benefit them, rather than kind of like a work history in a sense. And then when you're on LinkedIn, it's about building your network and engaging with new and existing connections. So in terms of engagement wise, things like comments are the most effective way to kind of increase engagement on LinkedIn. So making sure that you're engaging with other people's content. So, you know, you might see somebody's post and you can share a thought or something like that on it. So comments and posts over quick likes and shares is the best way to kind of engage on LinkedIn. We can go to the next slide. So, and then alongside that, a few things to think about in terms of where you might want to kind of explore on social media is that Facebook groups are still very much thriving. They're a great way to engage with like-minded people. They do take time to get off the ground, and people, if you were maybe considering setting one up, you do need to kind of manage that to start with. Also kind of local community pages as well. So they're still thriving, they still have value and are worth kind of looking at and engaging with and finding ones local to your area. So for example, a project we worked on, the Kind Shop, before that opened, within the Dumfries area, we'd shared it with a local kind of page. They'd shared some content around it, and then when people actually came down to the store, they'd actually said they'd seen it on Facebook. So those local community pages do have value and are worth kind of seeing how you can get involved with or engage with. And again, kind of looking at groups, for example, that are outside of maybe specific niches, things that are kind of more broader. So, for example, we help to run What's On in Cumbria in the Lake District social media group, and that shares lots of great events and activities happening right across Cumbria. So although it's not particularly focused on one particular sector, there is still value in kind of looking at where the different groups and things like that you can get involved with that may be relevant, maybe based on area rather than just a particular topic. And also kind of other local groups and community pages are worth kind of exploring and seeing how you can get involved with them as well. Go to the next slide. And then just on groups in general, if maybe you were considering, I might have a go at kind of creating my own on a particular topic or something like that. LinkedIn and Facebook both have options to create groups. They are a great place to create and build a community. Initially, they do need to be managed to eventually become self-managing, in that people will take them and run with them. But it could be a great way if you've got a particular interest or topic and are looking for a place to kind of build a community that maybe doesn't already exist. It could be a nice place to kind of start with, kind of build connections and get people together. And then next slide, please. I just thought to finish, I would maybe just share a little bit on kind of who Intro is for anybody that hasn't heard of us. So we are a creative PR and social media agency based in Cumbria. So I'm actually based in Carlisle, and we've got a whole team of experts with different specialisms, but we're all committed to using our skills to make Cumbria a better place. We do content, we do PR, we do social media. And if anybody does have any questions, my details are on the next slide. Feel free to get in touch, and we're always happy to talk about anything.
Great, thank you very much, Lucy. That was a really good overview of where we're at. I can see a great question from Sue in chat, but I thought just hold that question until we've heard from Rachel at Theatre by the Lake. But it's a question that I think I would also be interested in, the whole notion of threads, but it's a bit clumsy in Twitter, blah, blah, blah. So we'll come back to that one. Thank you, Lucy, and you're sticking around. So any questions that we can fire at Lucy in due course, then store those up now. But let's cross to Keswick and to Theatre by the Lake. Rachel, who helps run all the social media channels and platforms for the theatre there. Give us your take, Rachel, on what's going on at the moment and how you go about things.
Okay, so just to give you some context, we're a team of 3 in our marketing team. So we have Shelley Ramsdale, who's our head of marketing communications. I'm Rachel Kearns, marketing manager, and Rachel Price, who's on this call, is our marketing officer. So we have a team of 3. I do all the social media, but Rachel Price has done some of it in the past, and it's predominantly something that I've been left to manage, which is, for me, it's something I really enjoy. I have an approach to social media which is very similar to what we've already discussed, so what Lucy's discussed, and that's where is our audience and where is the best place to share the content that we have. So we are currently sitting on, I've got them all open now, we're on Facebook and Instagram predominantly, because that's where our audiences are. Facebook has been a platform that we've nurtured and developed before I started in the role. So that was predominantly where all our audience was. Instagram is something that I've built up, but Instagram is very easy to work with alongside Facebook, because you can operate both from the system called Meta. So Meta is a platform that was set up to combine Facebook and Instagram. So you can basically duplicate your posts across both channels. Some people frown on that and say that you should do different kinds of posts on each platform, but in fact I know I've got different audiences on both platforms, and some of it lands on Facebook and some of it lands, as in when I say lands, some of it appeals to my audiences on Facebook more, and then some of it appeals to my audiences on Instagram more. So with capacity, so time constraints, that is a great platform for me, and it's where we can, if we ever do any paid adverts, that's where we can do it from. So I have those 2 channels basically running as one. Occasionally we'll post different stuff on each channel, Facebook and Instagram, but for the most part they're running together, and that has proved to work really well. Because we've seen a massive growth in our Instagram followers, and we know that there's a slightly different demographic of people on Instagram than there is on Facebook. But Facebook also allows us to create events, which are really important for us, because that's obviously what we're all about, is events. And those events basically give us on Facebook, give anyone that's using Facebook the opportunity to see what shows we've got coming up for the whole year. So that's quite a big body of work, putting all those events in for us. But I see it as being worthwhile, because yeah, if you want to know what's going on at Theatre by the Lake for the rest of the year, it's all on there. And it's also, for me, it's a really important part of what we're offering any shows that are coming to us. So we've just had The Hound of the Baskervilles, which is a purely Theatre by the Lake produced production. So the responsibility for creating content, marketing material, and promoting the show was all Theatre by the Lake's responsibility. When we have shows like last night, we had Herman's Hermits playing in the main house. They're visiting band, but we still have a responsibility to them to promote them on social media. And that's obviously free. So, and we know that that audience for something like Herman's Hermits is more predominantly going to be on Facebook, because that's the platform that Herman's Hermits are using as well. So it's important that we have the platforms that are matching the visiting work that comes to us. We're on Twitter and we're on Threads. Now, we at the moment can't afford to come off Twitter, because Twitter has been an integral part of theatre communications for years. So whenever there's a press night, whenever there's an opening night, there's almost an industry understanding in the theatre world that you will celebrate that on Twitter. So as much as I personally would love to come off Twitter for all the reasons that everybody else is, at the moment that's not something that we as Theatre by the Lake can afford to do, just because of our connections, a little bit like what Colin was saying. So a lot of other theatres and arts industries are still using Twitter, so there's a little bit of a reluctance to come off it. Having said that, I can see so much more activity on Threads now with theatres and artistic groups coming onto Threads. And for me, I see Twitter now it's in my order of priority for what I'm posting. Twitter has dropped right off my radar. So it's still something that when we've got a press night or an opening night, I have to be on there. I can schedule a post in to go out, but it's not become one of my platforms that I'm thinking about all the time. Threads has definitely moved up. So again, this is reflecting what Lucy has said. It's a constantly changing platform, like all the platforms are constantly changing. And we're also using TikTok, and TikTok's obviously something you wouldn't automatically associate with Theatre by the Lake, but I know for a fact that we're getting some great engagement on TikTok, and sometimes from the most whenever we have anything happening in the theatre that's playful or fun, that's where I go to TikTok. So we had the Hound of the Baskervilles cast arrive. For anyone that saw it will know there were 3 actors, and one of them in particular, Dave Hearn, has got a reputation for being a bit of a mischief maker. He actually is from a theatre company called Mischief. When we were doing the traditional cast photo, which is stood out on Crow Park with the amazing Derwent water behind them, we normally take a stationary photograph, but Dave decided to turn it into a jumping competition. And I was there taking the photograph, but then quickly changed to doing a portrait video. That caption of them doing this jumping competition on TikTok got us, we haven't gone viral yet, but we got over 7,000 engagements from that post. And that was just a silly, it wouldn't have worked as well on Facebook or Instagram, but on TikTok it worked really well. Now the question is, does that translate to ticket sales? Probably not. Does that engage a new audience? Yes, it does. And is that audience a significantly younger audience? Yes, it is. And is that important to us? Yes, it is. So I think Lucy sort of covered this, but for me, whenever I'm doing anything, it's why am I doing it? Why am I posting this? Why am I putting it on this platform? So it's that why question all the time. So TikToks, and the other thing we shared on TikTok that did particularly well was in the Hound of the Baskervilles, we had a soft toy cat that needed to just run across the stage at one point. And so the stage management team put this cat on top of a remote controlled train and were practicing with it. And I saw that as an amazing opportunity to capture that moment. So we took that down into the foyer of the theatre, and this video of this cat on a train just running through the foyer of Theatre by the Lake, again, was really successful on TikTok. And interestingly, once you've created something on TikTok, you can then share it on your Facebook and Instagram Reels. And Reels are becoming a really important way to engage with, well, they are a really important way to engage with young people. So for me, all the time, it's why am I sharing this, and yeah, why am I sharing it on this particular platform? Sometimes I post stuff and I get zero reaction to it, but that doesn't mean it hasn't worked. Because some of those posts are informational posts. So for example, I post quite a lot about our under 26 tickets, which I know you're a big fan of, Tom, because you quite often respond to them. But I know people don't necessarily like or engage or comment on them. But I do know that will actually increase ticket sales. So even though I'm not getting, they're not going viral, that's an informational post that's really important for people that are under 26 or anyone that knows anyone that's under 26, that we have those ticket offers. So all the time I'm trying to make sure that we've got what we call evergreen content popping in, which is reminding people of what's on, reminding people of that our ticket offers, reminding people that we've got gift vouchers on that. I haven't done that for a while. Reminding people that we've got membership schemes. But also, for me, it's really important that we're sharing what's going on in the community as and when we can. So for me, Theatre by the Lake is proud of being a part of a community hub. So when we can, we do try and share whatever's happening on in the local area. But that can be quite hard sometimes because we have so much going on in the theatre itself. And as Lucy said again, I don't want to get to the point where we're posting something just for the sake of posting it. I feel that there has to be that why. Why are we doing this? Why are we sharing it? But we're also on LinkedIn. And using it very much as Lucy described. So we're using it more still using it a bit more as a business platform, but made our tone of voice has become a lot more human on there, reflecting the way everybody else is talking. And we are also using YouTube quite predominantly for us as well, because we do produce quite a lot of video content. And YouTube has become ridiculously popular. Again, they've created a different version of YouTube. So you've got the traditional YouTube, but they now have YouTube Shorts, which again, YouTube in portrait. So after rambling through all that, what I'm going to say is, for me, I love social media, and I have ever since I started using it on a personal level. I'm aware of its pitfalls from a business point of view, but also from a personal point of view. So I don't have any of my notifications turned on, and when the weekend comes, I turn off everything. So I'm not constantly. So when I say I love social media, I don't want you to think that I'm on there all the time. I'm not. I love some of the tools that we have available to make it easier. So Meta, sharing Facebook and Instagram at the same time, is brilliant. There's scheduling on pretty much everything, so you can create posts and have them go out at specific times. So I use that a lot as well. But answering Colin's question about what should I use and where should I go, I do spend a bit of time, work time and personal time, doing what I call is it's social media listening, and it is scrolling through platforms and seeing who's talking about what and when. And I've chosen platforms that I want to follow personally based on that, but also from a business point of view as well. So I will go onto Facebook to look for anything that's happening in Cumbria and the local area. This is on Theatre by the Lakes platform. So predominantly a lot of local businesses still use Facebook. So that's where I spend a lot of time looking to see what's happening there. Instagram, I'm getting a lot of information from our actors and other theatres, a little bit from local, but not so much. And Twitter and Threads, that's an evolving thing that I'm fascinated to see how it goes. But as I said, I'm using Twitter less and less, and I'm using Threads more, but I don't feel that it's ready to substitute for Twitter yet. I can't discount Twitter. And then, TikTok, LinkedIn and YouTube as and when I have the right content for those platforms.
That's a great overview. Thank you, Rachel.
That's all right.
Yeah, I mean, I follow most of Theatre by the Lake social media platforms, and it's certainly a busy role that you've got there. And it's really interesting to hear those insights into what's the most important things for you, and what are the things that are kind of a bit more selective about when and how you use them.
Interestingly, I'm just going to say one more thing. I'm going to manage your expectations about our birthday party as well. So our official birthday was on August the 19th, and we did do a social media round post around that because we opened our exhibition and it was our official birthday. The birthday that's happening tomorrow is more an invite-only birthday. So interestingly, that one is going relatively under the radar on social media, but there will be some photos that will be shared on Monday, but there won't be a big loud splash about it on social media, which is a management, not my decision, but a management decision, because it is an invitation only for members and ambassadors and press. So it's less of it's our birthday for the public. It's more of a thank you very much to everyone that supported us for the last 25 years, and here's the next 25. So just managing your expectations.
That's great. Okay, Sue, tell us about your experience then on Threads and finding it less easy to get to grips with it compared to, say, for example, Twitter.
Well, I tried Mastodon last year, which a lot of people from Twitter seem to be moving to when it initially was changed to X. Elon Musk took over. And Mastodon is just bizarre to get to grips with because it's run on different servers and you've got to sign up to a particular server. So I've just abandoned that. Threads is more like Twitter. It's another meta platform like Facebook and Instagram, but I haven't got to, the people I used to follow on Twitter and conversations just don't all seem to be there. Odd ones are, but I don't see them. And I've not got quite to grips with hashtagging there. And I don't know why I'm not seeing the content I want to. So I find it a lot of American content. So I'm doing something wrong. I need an instructional in Threads. But is that going to be the way forward? Or is it what Colin said is blue sky? I know some people are moving to that. I don't know. Yeah, I need instruction on Threads, really.
Anyone an expert on Threads? I've dabbled with Threads. I mean, I'm on Threads, but I don't really look at it very much because I still remain loyal. That's the wrong word, but I still use Twitter.
Well, why I like Twitter is unlike I am on Instagram, but only to follow some people I know are only on Instagram. But I don't take masses of photos of videos, and it's basically a pictorial platform.
Yeah.
Text, short form text that Twitter is perfect for me. That I followed lots of different communities, obviously Cumbrian ones and arts ones and writing ones, but also academic ones and history. And all my content that came up was really interesting, and I haven't managed that in Twitter.
Yeah.
In Threads, I mean, in Threads.
Yeah. Okay. Who else then on this call? So, Jim, I'm going to pick on you. So when we had a coffee in Cockermouth a couple of weeks ago, and we met for the first time, and I was interested in what sort of art you were doing and what you did in your new role as the what are you at Shipping
artist in residence?
Artist in residence at
Yeah,
Shipping Barrow Gallery in
although we have coined it as artist in the attic now, which I think is going to go forward.
Okay, so anyone who's not been to the Shipping Brow Gallery in Maryport, get down there. It's a bright blue building, been open for about 18 months.
Yeah, can't miss it.
Jim is the second artist in the attic stroke residence. And he's just started there from Southampton. And we'll find out more about Jim in due course. But Jim, you showed me your phone and you showed me your Instagram account. And that's where obviously you decided you're going to put your art on Instagram.
Yeah.
Are you just on Instagram? Do you use other platforms? You're not that, I don't know how old you are. I suspect you're in your 20s. You're relatively
yeah, sort of mid-20s, 27. Yeah, I tend just to use Instagram, but only because I know that through Meta it is connected to Facebook, so I don't have to sort of manage two different pages at the same time. But yeah, I just tend to stick to Instagram, and at the moment, I don't know, I have noticed like it all sort of shifting into different platforms, and I don't think it responds quite the way it used to. So where people are using Reels and I'm not making videos or anything like that, it has been quite hard to sort of self-promote and get the audiences in, because it tends to be just people I know or other artists that connect, and not sort of the wider communities or potential buyers that are actually circulating online. So yeah, I don't know. I think I've linked my website to it as well, but it is just touch and go and see what sticks. But yeah.
Okay. That's an interesting insight. Thank you. Anyone else got some reflections or things that they've heard either Lucy or Rachel talk about and agree, disagree? How important is this stuff for you in the work that you do, or as an artist, or working for an artistic institution? Are we all experts? Are we all Luddites? Are we sort of halfway between the two?
Can I just ask a question about hashtags? Because I always think, I don't know how many to use. I don't know how relevant they still are. You know, my young people tell me that they don't use them very much, but then older people tell me that they do use them. So just what's people's thoughts on that?
Lucy, have you got any reflections on hashtags?
Yeah, so we still find hashtags relevant, especially on platforms like Instagram and also on LinkedIn. I think it's key to kind of using relevant hashtags rather than quantity.
Just remind us why a hashtag is useful to what does it do?
Yeah, so it just helps with kind of people helping find your content and kind of how it's categorized and things like that. So if somebody, for example, on Instagram was to search for a particular topic, it can help with kind of that your content appearing in kind of the search results and the relevancy of it. So it's important to think of relevant hashtags rather than I'm going to use 20 hashtags. I would tend to stick to like a handful of maybe 3 or 4 really relevant hashtags to kind of what you're talking about. So that might be location based. It might be something around kind of Cumbria, or for example, we run a networking arm of our business, which is LA23 Net, and if we're in a particular area, like Kendall, we'll use local Kendall hashtags to try and increase exposure within that area. So it's picking things that are relevant to what it is that you're talking about, rather than going with quantity.
Okay, so they still have very much a role to play, but less is sometimes more by the sound of things.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hope that answers your question, Tina. Anna, did you have your hand up?
Go for the unmute. Yeah, it was just a reflection because I don't want to. I do use social media, Instagram a lot. I like the link across with Facebook's, but I also use Facebook, and for a while, because of some other work I was involved in, the link between Instagram and Facebook didn't work, so I had to post separately. But I find that it is very much a visual thing, and I find it really useful, partly for promoting what I'm doing, but also projects I'm involved in. And the other, I'm one half of Nearly Wild Weaving as well, so we've got a Nearly Wild Weaving as well as my own personal Instagram account. So it's making sure that those links are maintained. But also then I've just been at a conference this week down in London, picking up on who else was there, being able to follow them, being able to make connections. So I think I find it really useful just to have that cross linkage, but mine is a very visual work, in that the tapestry weaving creates an image, and that's what ends up on the wall. So it's useful to be able to communicate that, but also inspiration and ideas and various other bits and pieces. So I find that really useful. But it was a useful reminder about LinkedIn, and it's interesting to hear that that's increasing and improving in different ways, and I really need to change my profile from what I used to do before to now to what I'm doing now.
All right, thank you, Anna, and nice to have you with us and those thoughts. The Cumbria Arts and Culture Network has just set up a LinkedIn account in the last few weeks. It's sort of gone live. So if you're on LinkedIn and you want to hook up with that, then it's worth doing that. Amy is the person who looks after the social media platforms on the whole for the network. Amy's got her hand up. Off you go, Amy.
Yeah, I found it really interesting what Lucy was saying and what Rachel was saying about finding the right platform for you. And I think this probably isn't a question, it's probably just more of a discussion that what Rachel was saying about Theatre by the Lake using TikTok. I thought that was such a brilliant insight, because you can clearly see that that's a perfect platform for them. They're not using it all the time, but it's really genuine. They're capturing genuine moments from behind the scenes, and that's so engaging, and that's fantastic. And over the years since TikTok's been around, I've heard a lot of people I work with and clients sort of say, oh, should we be on TikTok? You know, you sort of hear about this big new thing, and immediately where, you know, younger people might be, and you know, companies, brands get so excited, don't they? And sort of think, oh, I should be on TikTok. But it's sort of, for me, I suppose it's if it's the right place, and you can't really manufacture that. You know, for Cumbria Arts and Culture Network, we've definitely thought about it, but I'm not sure. You know, we're just generally at home, we're doing our work, and that's not necessarily going to be something that's going to be interesting for TikTok. It might be. We should always consider it, but I don't know. I don't know if Lucy or Rachel have got more insights about making it genuine and finding the right platform for your organisation.
Thanks, Amy. Any thoughts, anyone?
I think on just thinking what you're saying there, Amy, about kind of making it authentic, especially with TikTok, it is that content that's kind of natural and naturally fits with the platform. So yeah, as you say, lots of businesses kind of go, oh, we should be on TikTok. But I suppose I would also ask the question of what kind of content would you be sharing, and can you sustainably create that content in an authentic way? So kind of, it has to have kind of people in it, or themes or topics that are going to be kind of interesting. And can you create that content, or is it kind of you're just trying to get involved with the platform and you're then trying to make the content fit, if that makes sense? So yeah, it's just kind of sometimes taking a step back and going, is it actually right? And can we actually, is it beneficial as well? Is it going to reach the kind of people that you want to engage with? And is it something that you can sustain and authentically create as well?
Thanks, Lucy. Kate of the Brunswick frame, come off mute and ask your very pragmatic question.
Sorry to be so boring and pragmatic. So it's a brilliant discussion. I'm sorry I came in late. I've always gone over to Facebook and Instagram, which we're all visual people here, aren't we? Which are great for visual things. But I've gone more to LinkedIn in the last few years with my coaching, because that obviously that's where the audience is. But I still run the Studio Moorland, which is a venue which is arts, wellness and leadership, and still have an art practice. So I've got 3 brands essentially. And I was sneakily using Hootsuite for years, which was great because you could do a post. So it might be a coaching and arts thing at the studio. So it combine all 3 brands and go across all the different platforms. But then they found out that I wasn't actually paying for full membership and had to come off that one. The subscription was quite heavy, and I haven't found another scheduling tool. I'm using Zoho Social at the moment, and I'm looking at Loomly. That I can do a post to LinkedIn, to Facebook, to Instagram, and do it across the brands and not have to pay thousands of pounds for. So if there's any insights there, I'd love to
So
know.
Amy's saying that Sienna's used Buffer. I've never heard of Buffer.
Okay.
And Chris is saying Pally's okay as well. I've never heard of Pally.
Never heard of that one.
Chris, what's Pally?
Again, it's a scheduling tool. I'm sure Lucy and or Rachel will know much more about it than me, but I have used it a bit. And again, whereas Meta will just do Facebook and Instagram, you can add you know, Twitter, other social media accounts, and put things in days or weeks ahead. And
is it free, Chris?
Which ones they go to? Sorry,
is it free?
I think there's certainly a basic one which is free, and I don't think it's very expensive to kind of. I think it probably limits the number of different sort of accounts you can add to it. But say I'm not an expert, but it kind of seems to work okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Amy, fill us in about Buffer. Similar thing?
Yeah, very similar. The free account is actually pretty good. I think it allows up to 3 accounts. And I was doing a lot of research about this. It is on the cheaper side for the paid posts. It's really easy to use. The calendar's really good. I would recommend it. Buffer. It's good.
Cool. Thank you. I'll have a look at
that. There's a nice link from Rachel. Thank you for that. Have a look at that for social media management. Yeah, we're into the realms of how do you manage the stuff as much as which platforms are the right ones to use and which ones are the ones. For me, the thing that I'm taking away from some of this discussion is just think about your audience. As with so much in life, where is your audience, and how can you cut through to them, rather than doing it from your perspective, do it from your audience's perspective. And then if you do that, if you have that front of head, you've got a fighting chance of cutting through to the people that you want to cut through to. Jonathan.
Hello, sorry, I had to nip off to get a delivery, some staging for our village hall. But my question's a tough one, I believe. How would we, what advice would there be for local history societies to engage with that ever-desired younger population? Usually we're relatively old, but what sort of thing would work, I don't know, on Instagram or TikTok or some other use of social media to bring these people in? They're important, local history societies. There's something of for all the culture in the area, there's something of the entry drug, I believe, in that people can catch on to local history and then suddenly they start becoming interested in broader and different community things, but it's how to catch them. I'd welcome any advice that might be available.
Any thoughts, anyone? The Holy Grail of the History Society meets young people.
I was going to
How do you make
say,
that happen?
I'm really happy to jump in here. So I would recommend going on to things like the National History Museum website, or the V&A museums, not website, sorry, the V&A and Natural History Museums Facebook and Instagram, and just see what they're doing, because what they're doing at the moment is absolutely brilliant. And actually the National Trust has just started doing some really fantastic stuff on their social media platforms. And trust me, there's nothing wrong with plagiarizing in the world of social media. So if you can see someone that's doing something particularly well. So unfortunately, what all of us are struggling with when it comes to social media is just the capacity and the time to do what's needed. So quite often when you're scrolling through, if you are scrolling through and looking at Reels or TikTok or whatever else, you're seeing something that might be lasting 3 minutes and might have entertained you if you've stayed on it and watched it. But what none of us are aware of until you start doing it is that the amount of time that goes into creating that actual content. So I can sit here and say to you, Jonathan, yep, you could go around and you could do some videos on specific things in the museum. You could get a whole series of stories that you could create. But I know that creating all of that content is going to take time. You have to often do subtitles and captions these days, which is really to make it really accessible. You then have to, as we've talked about, use the correct hashtags to make sure you're tapping into the markets. And there's quite a lot that's involved in social media content creation, and it's always underrated, the amount of work that has to be done, because most of us are literally consuming so much content every day if we are on social media, and we're giving very little time to it. We're literally scrolling through. Something has to catch our attention to get us to stop and read the text or to click the button to play. So there is no easy quick fix for how to get your social media content to work. The key to it for me is that you have to have someone that's doing it, that's passionate about it, and as Lucy has said, is committed to doing it on a regular basis, so that content is coming through all the time. So to give you some idea, some of these organizations that I've mentioned, so the V&A, the National History Museum, National Trust, and multiple other ones, will have literally a team of content creating people. So they will have someone who's a social media manager. They'll have someone that's doing social media listening, which is what I talked about before, which is literally someone that's seeing what everybody else is doing, commenting, reacting to audience things. They'll have a team of people that are doing content creation. So they're creating videos, they're writing scripts, they're planning whole campaigns. And then they'll have a team of people that are probably putting all that together to put on their social media platforms. So when we're sitting here saying, how do we like copy what everybody else is doing, or how do we increase what we're doing, it has become, even though it's still free for the most part when you're using social media, there is usually a team of people behind these big organizations. It's an actual job. So if you didn't, social media content creator is actually a job now.
Thank you. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
And as I think Kate's just put there, the RSPB TikTok account is very funny, and also other bits and bobs they do as well. And again, another big organization, but it's interesting how they're, I suspect, trying to cut through to a younger audience by doing that so well. A question or comment from Chris. Thanks, Jonathan. And then we're going to wrap this discussion up because Kate just wants to mention a couple of things about the network. So, Chris.
Okay, thanks. Just very briefly, pulling it back to the Instagram X, Twitter X Threads question. Sort of Thread seems to be the lead alternative, and I know, and lots of people are wanting to swerve Musk. I just wonder whether Rachel and Lucy think that the issue with Threads at the moment is that the app isn't very good, or simply that it's a question of kind of hitting that kind of critical mass to make it a viable alternative.
you want to pick that one up, Lucy?
Yeah, so Threads, if I'm being honest, isn't something that I particularly dive much into. Purely, well, I suppose this might be the answer from my perspective, Chris, but just I find it very clunky. I don't think it necessarily is an exact kind of match for what you kind of get experience-wise on Twitter in terms of how you can search for content and things like that. So I find it quite clunky, and I think personally for me it would be kind of the development of it as a platform to do more of what I would expect it to do. But I suppose that's more of a personal opinion than anything else.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Chris. Before we finish, it's 10:27. Kate, speaking of learning new things and learning how to do new things, just tell us what's going on with the network before I thank all the people that have been involved this morning. Over to you.
Okay. So, as we've mentioned once or twice, the network has some funding from Cumberland Council, UK SPF, which is replacement of European funding, to run a programme called the Business of Culture. It's for anyone who lives, works or practices in the culture sector in Cumbria. And it is special because it is...
Sorry, Kate,
Cumberland.
Cumberland, not the whole of Cumbria.
I beg your pardon, Cumberland. I'm distracted totally by the RSPB TikTok. Yeah, Cumberland. So if you live, work or practice in Cumberland, this is for you. It's specifically tailored for people who are in our sector. So it's distinct from anything that's being offered by anyone else because it's people working in our sector that are delivering the sessions. And the first three are, first of all, at the Quaker Meeting House in Keswick, Your Art is Your Business, with Sita Brand, who's the Chief Executive of Settled Stories. I've been on that course. It is brilliant, brilliant, brilliant if you are practicing on your own, if you're a freelancer, considering being a freelancer. It is an excellent way of thinking about making what you do into a sustainable business. So I would highly recommend that. The next ones are about presentation skills, and that is Tom Spate himself, and there'll be sessions in Workington and Whitehaven. And then later in October, there are sessions on the essentials of marketing, which I suspect will pick up on some of what has been discussed today. One of the sessions in Carlisle at the Youth Zone, and the last session in this particular run at Theatre by the Lake itself. And that is with Helen Palmer, who is also another really excellent trainer. So I would highly recommend those sessions. They're really low cost, designed to be affordable. But if the cost is an issue, then it's important to get in touch with us because we don't want ever for that to be a barrier. So yeah. There will be more to come. That's the first phase. There'll be more through November and December. And so thank you to Chris for getting all those set up. Please do get on and book. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. I'm just going to pick up on a comment that Kate Brundrick there. So part of this is just finding the time and the place where you feel inspired to write content for social media. And that's not necessarily sitting in front of the computer. It's when you're out walking and you have ideas, and the trick is to capture those ideas before they slip away, and then do something with them once you're back in front of your laptop or your phone or whatever.
Can I jump in here and tell you a story? So one of our social media posts on Theatre by the Lake recently, and this will make Rachel Price laugh. I was literally walking up onto a fell to tick off the last two Wainwrights of the 214 Wainwrights. And I knew that the day before, Rachel had gone out and run over and done the Abraham's tea round, or the George Fisher tea round as it's known now. So literally, as I was walking up to bag those last two fells, I was thinking about the social media post that was going to go on Theatre by the Lake's platform on Monday, and it did. So I have those thoughts while I'm out as well, and they do go on to social media. So it's not to say that I'm doing it all the time, but I have those days where I'm out walking the dog, going for a swim, doing whatever else. And I think, oh, actually, that would be a really good social media post to describe what's happening. And it's not always around, what we're doing personally. Often it is around work. But yeah, okay. I get my best ideas when I'm out as well.
It's a lovely outlet for creativity, isn't it? Well, it certainly can be. All right, well, I'm conscious of time. Thank you so much to Lucy and to Rachel and to Colin for raising the question initially for this morning's discussion. I hope that's been of interest to you. I hope you perhaps walked away with a couple of new thoughts or a couple of new reflections about social media and where we're at, particularly in the arts and culture sector here in Cumbria. It's been great. So thank you so much to those of you that have contributed to that discussion. Next week, by the way, we're going to have Sam Hunt talking about Aerial Festival, which is taking place in November. Angela Locke has written a book. We're going to hear about that as well. And also the Carlisle Poetry Symposium is imminent. So we're going to hear about what that's all about and what's going to take place there as well. So another smorgasbord of delights next Friday morning at 9:30. Lovely to see you all. Enjoy the sunshine while it's still with us for the next couple of days. Have a great time and catch you all again soon. Thanks for joining us this morning.